Hello friends, and welcome to a new vlog. It is currently Wednesday, June 7th, and we're starting this vlog a day behind schedule as far as reading. If you didn't see last week's vlog, go check that out. But I finished 5 books in that vlog, and I made progress through to the 6th. Oh, meanwhile, this is my new bed. This is the back. It is beautiful. Jewel buttons. It's also much higher than my old bed, so like I have to hop to get in and out. I'm a short person. Also, this is the foot of the bed. It kind of slopes in the middle, which is so beautiful. It is velvet and it just feels so nice. So that's my new bed. I'm in love with it. I still don't have sheets. Like, we went out and we got a fitted sheet, but I don't have like a proper sheet set for a king size bed. So we're gonna shop around for some sheets at some point in the next couple days, so that'll be fun and exciting. Anyway, back to reading. I have this much left of Redemption in Indigo. I am loving this. I almost don't know how to describe it, but it starts out with following a woman named Pama who has a husband named Nsige, who she left 2 years ago. He has now hired someone to find her, and so they meet up again. But there's also like these entities, these zombies, who are kind of meddling in these humans' lives and who have chosen her to possess this very powerful chaos stick. And so now she has gotten involved with powers beyond her, and interesting things are happening. And I don't know how else to describe it, but it's kind of like this fairy tale. We have this narrator who is narrating the story to us and like taking us in and out of different perspectives, but the narrator is interesting in themselves, and I love the way it's told. I love the writing in here. It's funny. I'm just having the best time with this book, and I can't believe that it took me so long to pick it up, but I'm gonna finish it today, or I'm hoping to finish it today. It's already 12:55 in the afternoon. I spent the morning wrapping up last week's vlog. I have that currently uploading right now. I played a little Animal Crossing, of course, but I do need to finish 2 books today in order to stay on track. So this is the first one, and then I'm thinking possibly of going back to A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, which I started last month and never finished. I am 3 chapters into this one, and I very much remember what was happening in the story, so I think I can just pick it right back up. But of course, this one I'd be reading physically, and this is going to be the real test of whether or not I am out of my physical reading slump. So that is my hopeful plans for today. However, today the new Dreamlight Valley update came out, and it's a big one, and that is what I currently have playing right now, and I kind of just want to play Dreamlight Valley, so I might just do that and then read in the evening. But I do need to think about lunch and feeding the kids, so I'm probably gonna do that first and then play some Dreamlight Valley, and then hopefully get a ton of reading done in the evening. But we shall see. I have no other plans today but to relax and read and play Dreamlight Valley. So I will keep you updated on my progress. Hello friends. It is Friday. I didn't update you yesterday because I had a very bad day mental health wise, and I was very sad. And because I was so sad, my husband took me book shopping to cheer me up. So I do have a reading update. I have a mini book haul. So what should we do first? The reading? Hold on. Let me set you down. Let's start with a reading update. I did finish Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord, and I loved this. I loved this so much. So this is based on, or partially based on, a Senegal folktale, but Karen Lord expands it, turns it into something different, into her own thing, and it's kind of like this fairy tale based on folktale with moral lessons and a narrator who is like, it's almost like a transcript of an oral story telling taking place. Like, that's what this feels like. The storytellers are so interesting in themselves, and the way the story is told is so interesting. The spirits, or the zombies in here, are such an interesting inclusion, and the way that they play into and observe human life and the influences that they have on humans, but also the influences that humans have on them is so interesting. And you can think of these zombies as personifications of ideas, right? There's the idea of chance and patience and things like that. It's extremely complicated while also being very simple. It's so hard to describe what Karen Lord does in here, but she does it fantastically. It's really a story about chance, a story about choices and the decisions that we make and where they lead, and the significance of that. It's so incredibly original. It's funny. It's intriguing. It does so much in so few pages, and I absolutely loved it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. My first 5-star of the month, and I had a blast. And now I'm obsessed and I want to read everything by Karen Lord. So I can't believe it took me this long to read this book, but I finally read it and I loved it. So my battery is flashing. Give me 1 second. I just changed my battery to film a video, and apparently I was filming for so long that the battery died again. The other book that I finished just last night is Dust by Hugh Howey, which is the 3rd and final book in the Silo trilogy. This book nearly brought me to tears. It was beautiful. I thought it was such an amazing conclusion to the series. There was still these amazing, just like super, because honestly, you don't know what's gonna happen by the end. You don't know if everyone's gonna die, if anyone's gonna survive. Like, it's just, everything's up in the air. Anything could happen. And I was just on the edge of my seat throughout this entire book. It got another 4.5 stars. Did I? Yes, I told you that was 5 stars. This one, I also gave 4.5 stars, like the first one. I feel like the second book was kind of like a middle book in the series, but the first and the third, amazing. I loved it. There's not much I can say about it without giving things away, so I really can't tell you anything besides I really enjoyed it, and it was heart-pounding and intense and action-packed, but also sometimes very slow. I think the pace was just really well done, and the world that Hugh Howey envisioned was very interesting. And it also leaves you, like, it gives you such a satisfying conclusion, but also gives you questions, you know, to think about. And I love that. I love when books end that way. So that was 4.5 stars. Very, very good. I finished a whole series, guys, in 9 days, because today is the 9th, which means we are behind. I'm at my computer right now, and let me see. I've read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. I've read 7 books, and today's the 9th. So I need to read 2 more books to be back on track. I never picked up A House with Good Bones again, so I need to get back to this at some point, but I think what I'm gonna do today is probably read some shorter things than this. Oh, my book haul. Let's do the book haul. So like I said, I was really sad yesterday, so I went book shopping. I have been having such amazing luck lately finding beautiful editions of books at used bookstores. Oh my goodness. But let's start with this one. This is A Mirror Mended by Alex E. Harrow. This is the second book to A Spindle Splintered, which I haven't read yet, but it is on my TBR for this month. And now I have the second book, so I can continue right on into it after that. A Spindle Splintered is a Sleeping Beauty retelling. So I'm assuming this just carries on from that one. But I found it at the used bookstore. It does have a little tear in the dust jacket here, but other than that, it's in pretty good condition. So excited to have found this one. And then I found these old, like, there was a whole set of them, but they are, it's called The Enchanted World. Is like myths and legends, and there's all different ones. I only got 2 of them. I couldn't buy the whole set, but I definitely want to go back and get more at some point. So the first one I got is The Book of Beginnings, and this one just has a bunch of different creation myths from around the world, and it's beautifully illustrated as well, and it's in this beautiful book. The book, like, it just smells so old. That's not weird. Like, it's a book thing. We sniff books. It's fine. I just loved it. I fell in love with this and I had to have it. And so the other one I got is The Enchanted World, Wizards and Witches. This goes into witches and wizards of infamy. Singers at the World of Dawn, Masters of Forbidden Arts, the Shadowy Sisterhood. It goes into magic users throughout history and lore. There is magical artifacts and a whole chapter on the tarot. Like, it's so interesting. And look at how beautiful this is. I love these so much. They were $8 a piece, $7.99, I believe. I want to go back and get every single one of them. I really do. But I got these two and I'm very excited to have them. I think they're gonna look really beautiful on my shelf, and I will definitely read these as well. I think it'll be fun to look into. But the star of the book shopping experience yesterday was the Illumicrate edition of Extraordinary by V.E. Schwab, which I have been wanting to pick up and read for so long, but just kept putting it off, and now I know why. It's because this copy was waiting for me at the used bookstore. I don't think they realized that this was the Illumicrate edition, because my used bookstore, this was Bright Light, they have a whole section for special editions and they price them accordingly. This one was not. It was just with all the other graphic novels. It was regular priced. It's a signed edition as well. And even if they didn't know that here's the end papers. Even if they didn't know that it was a like special edition, it's a signed edition. So I don't know if they didn't notice that, because all of their signed editions are also separated and they are priced accordingly. This wasn't even priced as if it was a signed edition, but there is V. Schwab's signature right there. So I lucked out and I got the Illumicrate edition of Extraordinary for a very reasonable, for a regular priced used graphic novel, which is like the luck, right? So happy to have this. I love this cover. And I think my plan for today is to read this and maybe A Spindle Splintered, which is the first book. Let me grab it. Okay, so here's A Spindle Splintered, 119 pages. So a nice short one paired with a comic, graphic novel. I'm pretty sure I could get through both of these today. So that is the plan for getting caught up. After that, I do need to start reading these library books because they do have to go back to the library eventually. So that is where I'm gonna head next. But for right now, this is the plan for today. It has been a while since I last updated you. I can't remember when I last updated you, but I have finished 3 books since I last talked to you. I'm really worried that this week's vlog is going to be boring / messy because I'm not having a good week mentally. Let's talk about the books that I finished. Okay, also update on my bed. We got new sheets. They're pink. I'm not really a pink girly, but I saw them and I had to have them. So there's that. The only problem is it's not wide enough for the bed. It's a freaking king comforter, but still not wide enough for our bed. So that's a little annoying. But anyway, 3 books have been read. I think the last time I spoke to you, I told you I was going to read these 2 books that I can get caught up. So that must have been on the 9th. So that's where we are. I did end up reading these 2 books on that day. I started with The Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. This is a Sleeping Beauty inspired story. We're following a girl named Zinnia Gray who has this disease, GRM. No one who's had it has lived past 21. It is her 21st birthday, and she has been obsessed with Sleeping Beauty and the story of Sleeping Beauty ever since she was a girl. Because of that, her best friend Charm throws her a 21st birthday party that is Sleeping Beauty inspired, complete with a spinning wheel to prick her finger on. And she does. Jokingly goes to prick her finger on the spinning wheel and ends up getting sucked into a completely different universe where there's an actual Sleeping Beauty story being played out. She needs to, of course, find her way back home, but also maybe try to save this princess from her fate. It was so good. I love Alex E. Harrow's writing. The writing in here was beautiful. I loved the way she subverted the whole fairy tale of Sleeping Beauty and how the evil queen is maybe not so evil. It's really inspiring and feminist. It's about saving yourself and making your own story, and I loved it. I loved it. It was so much fun. 5 out of 5 stars. And then I picked up Extraordinary by V.E. Schwab, which is a really short little story about Charlotte Tills, or Charlie. If you're not familiar with the Villains universe, I guess, by V.E. Schwab, the whole premise of it is that there are extraordinaries, and extraordinaries are created by having near-death experiences. So when you have a near-death experience and you come back with a certain kind of power. Charlie comes back with the ability to see everyone's death in a reflection. And so when she looks at her own reflection, she sees the person who is responsible for her death. And so she goes about trying to stop him before he can kill her. I really ended up liking this story. I'm not a huge fan of the art. I mean, the art is definitely amazing. It's just not my particular style. It was really fun just getting this little snippet of this one little character in a corner of the universe. And the only issue that I really had was the fact that Victor and Eli's story is in here kind of summarized in comic book style, the whole first Villains book. Victor and Eli are main characters from the first book. I get it. Like, I know that if someone's just picking this up, they would need that context to understand what's happening here. But for someone like me, and for other fans who are very familiar with Villains and Victor and Eli, I thought it was just kind of, I don't know, wasteful getting a whole rundown of their story again. So that was a little irritating to me. I think that might have been one of the reasons I gave it a 4-star instead of a 5-star, but I gave it 4 stars, so I did really enjoy my time with it. And then last night I finished The Archive of the Forgotten by A.J. Hackwith. I keep saying A.G. A.J. Hackwith. This is the second book in the Hell's Library series, the first book being Library of the Unwritten. This is one of my library books, and I decided after finishing those that I really needed to like start reading the library books because they have to go back to the library. I liked this one. I just didn't like it as much as the first book. We do this thing in here that a lot of second books in series, in fantasy series, do, where we're kind of narrowed in on the characters, on certain characters, so we have kind of this separation. It's still the same main cast, but they're not all working together. They're working separately and doing separate things to accomplish different goals. We get to see a lot more from a particular character in here, which was interesting. There's kind of a romance that develops between these two characters that I did not see coming, but I'm not mad at it. And our main character, Claire, I feel like didn't get as much page time as I would have wanted her to, and because I wasn't expecting that, it kind of didn't work as well for me. But this still has so much to say about story and the power of story and humanity and just kind of like the human condition, basically. And you would think that from the first book, everything that about stories and books and reading that needed to be said would have been said, but no, there was more in here and it was beautiful. We did get such great character development, but just from that one character, I feel. This did a lot of great things, is what I'm saying. Where it kind of broke down was the plot. I think the way this was plotted wasn't quite what I wanted, especially after reading the first book and then having it be plotted so well. This one just kind of fell apart when it came to plot. The overall intent of this book was interesting and well done, but it wasn't executed well, in my opinion. Not only that, but like there's a thing they're trying to figure out throughout this entire book. Everyone separately is trying to figure this out. Had they worked together, maybe they would have came to the conclusion sooner. Or honestly, I feel like, because I came to the conclusion sooner and I was just waiting for the characters to catch up, and I didn't understand why no one was realizing what was going on, because it seemed so obvious to me. And I felt like this whole book was just like filler, just like wasting time to get to the point, because the point was so blaringly obvious. So because of that, this ended up getting 3 stars. I am excited to continue on and read the 3rd book, which I did start last night as well. And I am 3 chapters in, so not very far at all, but I'm reading this one physically because listen to the audiobook for this one, and that's another thing that didn't work for me. And I hate to say it, but like, this is narrated by Bonnie Turpin, which I love Bonnie Turpin. She's one of my favorite audiobook narrators, but this story didn't work well for her particular narration style, if that makes sense. She did like this British accent that just wasn't good. I love Bonnie Turpin, I really do, and I've loved everything she's narrated except for this. So the narration of this was also putting me off, so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna read this physically, even though it's probably gonna set me back a bit because we are behind yet again. Today's the 12th and I finished, yes, 10. I finished 10 books. And today's the 12th, so I'm 2 books behind. I don't have a plan for catching up today because I'm so behind on absolutely everything, you guys. I'm behind on content planning, I'm behind on filming, I'm behind on editing, I'm behind on emails, I'm behind on housework and life stuff, just everything. I'm behind. Today I just need to like catch up on things, mostly content things. I need to finish editing this video and get it uploaded today, and I need to film a bunch of different things. So don't have a plan for catching up reading wise. Hello my friends. It is Monday the 19th. Happy Juneteenth, and also it's been a full week since I last spoke to you. I have gotten extremely behind on reading. This week, this past week was like really bad for me, mental health wise. Also I've been really busy. I've been working. It's just been a lot. So I really didn't feel like getting in front of the camera. I haven't much felt like reading, honestly, and like I said, I am very behind, but I do have 4 books that I have read since the last time we spoke that I want to talk to you about, and I have a book haul because I have a small little stack of ARCs and then 1 book that I broke down and bought. I'll show you that in a second, but let's get caught up. So last time we spoke, I was reading The God of Lost Words by A.J. Hackwith. I read the first 3 chapters, put it down, never picked it back up again. But once I realized that it was like, oh shit, I'm so far behind. I'm like 5 books behind. I need to just read something. The next book I picked up wasn't a short one, but it was the audiobook that I had available to me because I was away from home. I had to take my mother-in-law to an eye appointment, and so I was sitting there and I was like, I just need to pick up an audiobook to listen to, and I had Master of Jinn available, so I picked that up, I read it, and it took me a couple days to read this, but I loved this. So in this one we are following Fatima again, who is one of the only female agents of the supernatural, oh my god, I always forget what it's called. The Bureau, the supernatural entities and investigations. Oh, here it is. The Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities. That's what it is. Okay. So in this book, Fatima gets called in when there is this brutal murder of several Englishmen that was carried out by some kind of masked figure. There is a connection to, I love the way these books are connected because there's a connection to the first book as well as The Haunting of Tramcar 015. We see characters from there come back in here, but the mystery in here is figuring out who this masked figure is. We find out pretty early on, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the murderer claims to be Al-Jahiz, who has returned to condemn the modern age. And Al-Jahiz is the original person who opened the portal and let in all of these supernatural entities to begin with. Promptly after that happened, he kind of disappeared and no one heard from him again. But this masked figure that's going around murdering people and causing mayhem is claiming to be him. And so the mystery is trying to figure out who this is, who this imposter is, and what their plans are, and obviously to stop them. So we have Fatma, and the fun thing about this one is that Fatma is someone who likes to work alone, but she is assigned a new partner who is this new recruit young lady, and she is like not having it. I loved the relationship that developed between them. I thought they ended up working really great together. We also see some people come back from the past, from Fatma's past, and maybe a little bit of a romance, and all of it was just so good. I love P.J. Clarke's writing. You guys know this. He's one of my favorite authors. Ultimately loved what this did. There was high action scenes, there was very intimate scenes, history and mythology that we went into with this, and I just had a blast reading it. I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars. The only thing that stopped it from being a 5 stars was that I felt like a bit in the middle dragged out. I felt like we were spinning our wheels a little bit with going over the same information and the plot not really moving forward as quickly as it should have. So I just had some pacing issues with it, but other than that, I absolutely loved it. So I'm very excited that I read it. It was fun. I laughed. I nearly cried, like just a range of emotions, and I had a great time. So that was a success. I really hope that P.J. Clarke writes more in the Jinn universe, because I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy Fatma, and I just want to continue following her. I decided to go for a little horror, and I read Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. So this was written in like what, 1871, I believe, and this is said to have inspired Dracula. And in this we are following a female vampire named Carmilla. The story is told from the perspective of Laura, who is a young girl who develops a friendship with Carmilla. Now this is a novella. It's very short, and I feel like because of that we didn't get into the story as much as I may have wanted. At the same time, I feel kind of mixed about this. For one thing, this did almost everything that I wanted Dracula to do. Dracula I ended up not enjoying as much. A common complaint that I have with a lot of classic gothic or just classic horror in general, or classic sci-fi in general, is that we don't get to see from the perspective of the monster, of the villain. And I feel like that's something as modern writers we do a lot better these days. I wanted to hear about Carmilla. I wanted to know what she was thinking and feeling. I wanted to see her perspective, and that's something that we don't get. And I think because these creatures, these monsters, these people are just meant to be so evil, you know, and they don't get a voice. And that's something that I really don't appreciate about classic horror and classic gothic literature. But this was so incredibly atmospheric. The way the writing was stunningly beautiful. The way that like the castle is described, and the woods and the surrounding water and the bridge and the gothic stone and the fog, and just everything about the way that everything was described was so beautiful, down to the furniture in the home. So that was just a delight to read. The problems I had with it was just like casual throwaway lines that were incredibly racist, homophobic, and there's even a doctor in here talks about the origins of vampirism, that vampires are created by someone evil dying by suicide, and that's how and then they come back, and that's how vampires are. And I was just, huh, okay, like I've never, okay. Yeah, so it was things like that that were like not okay, not acceptable. But I mean, this was written in the late 1800s. I get it. At the same time, I don't have to accept it. So there were things like that. But at the same time, even though there's like this blatant homophobia in the text, there's also this subtext of like Carmilla because Carmilla is very affectionate with Laura, and she calls her my love, and she kisses her and holds her close. Laura is talking about how uncomfortable all of that affection makes her feel, but also how it feels really good as well. And so there's just like these subtext of these scenes that make you wonder whether or not the author was trying to say something or not. But you could tell that Laura had a lot of internalized homophobia. So like there was, it was so, I don't know, it made me feel very conflicted. Let's just say that. Ultimately, I liked what this did, but I can't excuse the things that it did really badly. And so I ended up giving it a 3.5 stars. I'm really glad that I read it. This was the first horror classic that I read all year, and one of my goals this year was to read a total of 12. So I'm doing great, but I am really glad that I read it. And it's very interesting, it's very atmospheric. I definitely recommend it, but just know that it has its issues. But I think I did end up liking this more than Dracula. And it does a lot of the same things because it's being told from a perspective outside of the main subject of the book. And I can see how something like Dracula was constructed from this as inspiration. I think that for the time it was written, it was definitely pushing some boundaries. So you gotta give it that, at least. Brown Girls by Daphne Palasi Andreades. Was so surprised by this. This is not at all what I thought it would be, but I fell in love with the story. This was 5 stars for me. So I definitely need to read more from this author, but this is not like a typical narrative story. It's told in a collection of vignettes, and we're following a group of brown girls born to immigrant parents in Queens, New York. And we basically go through their childhood and their adolescence and their coming of age and their womanhood and their death eventually at the end of the book. And it's told in a collective we and us, like 2 days before we are to begin our first day of high school. Some of us, bound for schools outside the dregs of Queens, toss and turn in our beds. Words we've tried to forget resurface in our minds. It's told as a collective. And I loved that. I thought it was so smart because it really is empowering. It really makes you feel like you're a part of this narrative, and it's so incredibly relatable, even if you are not a brown girl, even if you are not a girl growing up in Queens. This talks so much about girlhood in general and coming of age, womanhood, motherhood, how the world treats you as a woman. It goes through all the highs and the lows of a life. And honestly, I'm getting emotional because this book had me bawling, like to the point where my eyes were swollen the next day, because I cried throughout the whole like last third of this book. It was so beautiful and deep and had so much to say about everything and just how incredibly difficult it is being a woman in the world, but also how beautiful it can be being a woman in the world. This put into words so many thoughts and emotions that I have had swirling around for the past, I don't know, 2 years that I could never put into words myself. I felt like I was given voice in a narrative like this, and it was just so beautiful and poignant and deep and important. This story is so important for what it did for me and what I'm sure so many other women like me would get out of a story like this. Wow. Wow, this was incredible. I don't know if this author has written anything else. Was this a debut? I don't know, but I need to read everything by this author now. This was just so incredibly thought-provoking and evocative. Definitely want more like this in my life. If you have read this and you know of anything similar, please let me know in the comments. Then I read Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse. What I love about Rebecca Roanhorse is the fact that she can create such unique settings, and that's what this felt like. Like, this is set in a world where there are angels and demons, and that sounds familiar, right? Like, that's been done before, but the way she does it is just so unique. So this is a fantasy western, but with the addition of angels and demons. So there is mention of the fall and the war against angels and demons, and now they live among people. We have people who mine the dead bodies of fallen angels and extract this stone called divinium, which is how they power everything. This is kind of like this murder mystery. We are following Celeste and her sister Marielle. Marielle and Celeste are half bloods, so they are like half human, half fallen. The keepers of the law in this world are people who represent themselves as orders of a particular like archangel. So there's like the order of Michael and the order of Samuel, whatever, you know, different angels. I can't think of any more right now, but anyway, Celeste's sister gets arrested and accused for murder, and she is locked away in hell. And Celeste is now determined to do anything to clear her sister's name. So she goes about investigating this murder and what happened and getting help from Abraxas, who is this sexy demon who she used to date. And honestly, I feel like Rebecca Brownhorse just needs to write romance, okay? Because the swoon-worthy scenes, I felt this way with Black Sun as well, like just the tension that she creates between two people. Oh my god, it was hot, okay? Anyway, the world in here is just so interesting, and we follow Celeste as Celeste is a character that I really loved, and then by the end of the book, I absolutely hated. And I realized after finishing this book that I hated Celeste so much. She reminded me, of myself, and the darker part of myself. She would do absolutely anything to save her sister, to save the person she loves, to save her family, that she would hurt her friends, that she would take an innocent life if necessary. There is nothing that she wouldn't do, to the point where she really hurt herself. I hated her. I hated the decisions that she was making, and at the same time I would have made those same decisions. So that was a lot. That was really a lot for me, but I have to say that this was so well done. I loved the writing in here, the romantic tension, the world and how it was set up. I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars. Wasn't quite 5 stars, but it was really close. So these were all the books that I read in the past 2 weeks. I think it's been 2 weeks, over 2 weeks since I started this vlog. Let's quickly do the book haul and then we're gonna wrap this thing up. These are all the books I've picked up over the past week. So most of these, all of these, except for one, are arcs that I picked up from work. First we have The Combat Codes, and this is by Alexander Darwin. Now, this one I don't think I'm gonna end up keeping. This was given to me by my manager. It was actually sent to him from Orbit, and he didn't want it, and then I realized I thought that this was something different. I think that this is more like military sci-fi, and I don't like military sci-fi, if you know. Like, I really didn't like Red Rising. I don't like that style of sci-fi, and so I might not keep this. But before I like give it away or something, I might let Sean read it, because maybe he would like it, and then he could tell me whether I would like it. I think that's the plan. But I got that one. And then I saw this by Garth Nix. This is Sir Harewood and Mr. Fitz. And I saw the cover of it and it looked so interesting, and there was this little Pinocchio looking fella, and I was like, what is this? And then I realized this is a collection of stories that Garth Nix wrote about Sir Harewood, the only male child of an ancient society of witches, knight, artillerist, and swordsman, mercenary for hire, ill-starred lover. And then there is Mr. Fitz, who is a puppet, sorcerer, lore master, practitioner of arcane arts, and wielder of sorcerer's needles. And like, that was pretty much all I needed to know to pick it up. It says, compiled for the first time ever, these 8 magical stories plus an all new tale. And this comes out in August 23rd. So picked that up. And then, okay, one of my most anticipated reads of the year. This is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo, who is an author that I absolutely love. Her first novel for adults, the story of one Dominican-American family told through the voices of its women as they await a gathering that will forever change their lives. Honestly, I don't need to know anything else. I know it's gonna be amazing. I love Elizabeth Acevedo, so I'm very happy to have this early. This comes out August 23rd as well, so I'm hopefully gonna read this next month. Another super anticipated release is A Benny's Song by Pijale Clark. This one comes out next month in July. I'm definitely going to try and read this before its release date. This is Pijale Clark's first middle grade story. It says it is the enchanting beginning of an epic West African and African diaspora inspired fantasy adventure for middle grade readers. But yes, we just talked about how much I love Pijale Clark, so very excited for this one. Another one that I think I mentioned in like a new and exciting video is The First Bright Thing by J.R. Dawson. The only thing I know about this is that it's a circus book. It's compared to Addie LaRue and the Night Circus, two of my all-time favorites. So hopefully it lives up to those comparisons, but this is one I am definitely very excited to read. I will read any circus book because I'm forever looking for my next Night Circus. And then this one is not one that I had heard of previously, but it looked interesting. This is Forged by Blood, book 1 of the Tainted Blood duology, and this is by Igbor Okosun. It's the first book in an action-packed, poignant duology inspired by Nigerian mythology, full of magic and emotion and set in a highly atmospheric, complex world in which a young woman, having had everything stripped away from her, fights to survive a tyrannical society and seeks vengeance for her mother's murder and the spilled blood of her people. I'm always a sucker for African-inspired fantasy. This is YA, but I am willing to give it a shot, mostly because the cover is just so beautiful. And then the one book that I did purchase because I saw it and I couldn't not buy it, and that is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. I'm hoping that this will be another 5-star, and it just looks like a really, look at this cover, by the way. Isn't that cute? Like, it's so beautiful. Looks like it's just gonna be a really fun, like, summer horror. So that is the book haul, my friends. Those were all the books that I got over the past week, plus the books that I showed you. Was it last time I updated you? I had another book haul. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap up the vlog here. That is it for now. Talk to me down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Take care of yourselves, please. Self-care is very important. If you enjoyed this video, and I'm sorry that it was all over the place and messy, but if you enjoyed it anyway, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one, which will hopefully be much better. Bye.